Hey guys, it's Brett Burns with the Prepared Man in the final round of the In the Bush Challenge. It's rained all night and all morning, and I've hiked into the woods this morning to do a part of our challenge. I'm going to cook you a meal in the bush today, a bushcraft meal, after I build a fire. Now, I've picked a special location that I'm going to work up my shelter with a little bit later. As you can see, we might as well be at the hotel. I got fresh running water, so the first thing I'm going to do for my meal is collect some of that water using some of my 5Cs. Now, my 5C bushcraft kit that I created is a great kit, but I have tools that I brought with me for this job, simply because I carry a haversack everywhere I go. So, I'm going to take my cup here, which is my only piece of Pathfinder gear that I carry, my Pathfinder cup. Go up here and collect some of this runoff. It's working. It is a little cloudy, so I will be boiling this, but that's okay. Even clear water can have microbacteria, so I'll boil it anyway. There we go, plenty of good water, no smell, but there is a cow pasture not far from here, so I'm going to go ahead and boil this water for our 12 minutes. But first, I got to get a fire going. So I'm going to go out here in this area and collect some dry firewood in places that I know from experience you can find dry firewood. A couple of places is the undersides of these fallen trees. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to whip around here and get my hatchet on this fallen tree and cut out some dry wood for a fire. Once I get my fire started, I can use wet wood. Check out that beautiful water. Yeah, it looks about like corn mash or something. I don't know what it looks like. Alright, I'm going to set this up here in my little camp. My little day camp. Oh boy. I've got some foraged items to show you guys as we cook our meal that I foraged on the way, but right now we're going to try to get some dry wood going. Now, all of this is soaking wet. When we get down in here, it should just be the surface. Let's see. There's probably some good stuff in there. Let's see. That's drier. It's still very wet. I just touch it to my lips to check and see if it's too wet. So far, heck yeah, it's pretty wet. So I've gathered my water. We're going to just kind of forage around and try to find some drier tinder. So stick with me. Probably wind up high-speeding this just so we can try to find it a little bit quicker and not make this video a couple of hours for you. I do have a backup plan, but right up here is a root ball that we're going to next. Now, one of the things is I don't carry store-bought tinder like wet fire and things like that. I just don't, because in my area of the world it's at least an hour to a 2-hour drive or a web search for any type of store-bought tinder like wet fire and things like that. So I've just kind of learned to do without it, and I just don't carry it. Now this tree's fell. This big root ball's upturned. And the underside of it is very dry. So Let me get my camera adjusted here. And that rock flipped over. We might use that bad boy. It's nice and flat. Let's see. Yeah, dry sticks. Flat rock. We're gonna carry that back to camp too. Some more dry sticks here. A little bit of a crackling fire going. In a pinch, I'd climb in this sucker and make my overnight shelter. Right now, we're just gathering dry tinder, and I'm gonna use my sack here that we're gonna talk about here in a minute. A hat, because I gotta have something to carry it to keep it dry. It's very possible halfway through this video that it could start raining again, so I have to keep that in mind. But a wide brim hat, even though I haven't had one for very long, I haven't used one for very long, I think it's a great tool, and I'll talk to you guys about that more when we get back to camp while we're setting up our fire. I'll show you a couple other ways to use it, especially if you're like I am. I've been going hard for almost a month now in this competition, and I'm sick with upper respiratory issues, and I'm just hoping that I don't get bad sick from this. You find an evergreen like this, it's a great source for fat wood as well, because you have this exposed root. Unfortunately, this is also a great way to get up with a critter that you don't want to get up with. A bit of mold on that, but it's dried off since then. So just be careful, exercise caution. If you do roll a big snake out like this, which I have, you know, just stay calm. He doesn't want anything to do with you. He was chilling out watching Netflix or something. He wasn't bothering you. And when you leave, he'll go back to not bothering you. I wanted this especially. These pieces of bark, I'm going to lay them down to make my hearth because it's so wet. I think I got enough wood here to start a fire. We'll take this big chunk as well that's fairly dry. I'm just treating this hat awful, but that's okay. So let's go back down to our base camp. Haven't went very far. Get set up. Oh boy. Well, things you have to watch. Everything's a chore in the bush, even just traveling. If I cross the stream and slip and fall and get this wood wet, I'm back to square one, so I have to kind of watch out. This is also a good opportunity. Give a word to the wise. If you want to go out and buy a hat and be cool, buy a crushable wool felt hat. Because you're going to crush it. Let's face it. Right here's where we're going to set up and do our cooking. Because it's a fairly level spot, I've learned from experience to cook on level ground so you don't roll a pot off on your foot and scorch yourself. And a nice flat rock. We got a hat full of tinder. Oh boy, that looks awful. It's dry. Now it's not going to stay dry forever, so we need to go ahead and start our fire. And I did bring some stuff in my kit to use with this, so let's rehat ourselves and go get my little kit. Okay, got my little fire kit. And this is the first thing I'm going to talk about, which defines this as a bushcraft meal, is 99% of my kit is either gifts or trades. And I think that's part of modern bushcrafting, is that you use those types of things. This is a flint and steel kit, the Hudson Bay tin, that this was actually gifted to me by a really good friend of mine, along with his hat, Brad McCaffrey. Brad is an excellent friend of mine. I consider him a brother. Unfortunately, he lives in Kansas and we haven't seen each other in person yet, but Brad's one of those people that there'll never be another one like him. So thank you, Brad, very much for this. Now, another thing that I carry in my kit that we're going to use today is some bird's nest material. So I'm going to go grab that. And it's just cedar bark. Native Americans smoked cedar bark. I carry cedar bark when I find a cedar because they are a little rare in my neck of the woods where I do my goofing around and my walking in the woods. So I'm going to go grab it because I pulled it the last time I saw it. Now the reason that we pull these things when we find them is you get days like this. I also have this fat wood. This is local fat wood that was split out. This is not a commercial kind of any kind of jack. You gotta go, buddy. You gotta go. Go on, go on. But I'm gonna use it today. Like I said, it's soaking wet. I got a little bit of an upper respiratory, so bear with me here. 90% of your fire and the success of your fire is through successful setup. So since I'm on video, I'm going to do a setup that should be impossible to fail at. I'm going to lay this bark out, have a nice dry hearth to get started with my little fledgling fire. Just set him right there. Break up some of these sticks that have some moisture in them. This is root here. I'm going to use my knife to feather down some of these drier sticks. Oh boy, this has been a long journey so far, just today. I've done some foraging while I was walking in the woods, and I'll show you what I've collected to eat today. Because one of our goals in this video is to have a foraged salad with this meal. I'll tell you the goals for this meal. We're going to cook some bannock in our cutout plate. We're going to cook a little deer meat because it is a wild edible, and we're going to have some other meals, other things that I consider myself extremely lucky to have even found, and something that I guarantee you, unless you live outside the state of Kentucky, you can't duplicate. So just stick with me on that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a minute. Now, one of the things I do at camp in the night is pre-curl my fat wood, so I do have a lot of fat wood curled in my bag, but I'm just going to show you. I'm going to make a fetish stick with this fat wood. Yeah, let's get that wood in. I'm going to process the other piece down for small tender. Do a little bit of hand splitting. Sorry for those playing at home, I'm not batoning today. In another group, and I saw this morning they had 60 something posts, and one of their primary arguments was that's how people made shingles back in the day. Which is true and untrue. They did do a form of batoning.
but they used a specialized tool that was made to baton with. I'm not talking about the habilis bush tool, which is one of the worst knives I've ever owned. I'm talking about a fro. A fro was a hand tool designed with a 90-degree or a perpendicular handle, and it was used specifically for splitting wood to make shingles or lathing or boards that you were going to use. They were a beast. They were thicker than the BK2, and I might add, broke often. So,
make sure everything's working here.
Yeah. Alright, I got my fire lay. Next I'm going to pull out some of my essentials. I do have enough cedar bark to make a pretty good bird's nest. If I was doing this just for me, for a fire, unless it was an emergency, I wouldn't use all this. I'd use a very small amount, but I'm on camera. I really want to do this the first time and not struggle with this thing. So I still got a whole meal to cook. So that's going to be my bird's nest. Let's get this baby going. One of the things I think about modern bushcrafting is the modern camp should be filled with stories. And my camp is filled with stories. It's filled with stories of friendships formed over trades. And that's some of the stuff I'm going to share with you while we're cooking up our meal. Little tip, something that I do. I wrap my steel. This is a Francis Kirk steel. He also made this neck knife and gifted it to me. Brandon Smith, my brother, gifted this to me. Francis's steels they're amazing. So, they're primed. Flip this char cloth over. Clinton's going to give me down the road for that one. Come on. Fire. And top of our fire, we're going to put some of our feather sticks we've made up. There we go. All that black smoke is coming off that fat wood and those volatile resins that's in pine. So that's a good sign, actually. That fat wood's taken. And it doesn't matter if it's wet or not. Go ahead and put some more fat wood in my fire. That'll kind of carry my flame over on the marginal kindling. Right now, this fire is going to soak moisture up out of the ground like crazy. because heat rises, and as it converts that moisture to steam, it can actually put itself out. So I'm gonna save this just in case I need it. That's the paper my steel came in. And that's just something I do. I wrap my steel. One thing, I figure that it keeps down the wear and tear on that lens, because even if I went out and bought another Hudson Bay tin tonight, it's not the one that Brad gave me, so it's no comparison. Put this to the side for right now. Put my knife up because it's about time to go get some more wood. I do have a plan, because these undercut banks like this, they collect wood as limbs fall, and they'll roll and hang over this bank. So I'm gonna get those. Let me back up just so you can see my fire. I want to make sure that my fire is on camera. There we go.
Everything's pretty standard. It's going to be slightly wetter, or dry rather. And I will say this, if I'm in the bush, I'm not above using cigarette lighters, kerosene, paraffin wax, whatever I have. Get a fire going. Oh God, that's wet still. That's green. I do see a dead stand here. I'm gonna go cut it while my fire kind of catches up. Follow my camera. We'll pull it on down here in a minute. Just trying to make sure my fire keeps going. There'll be a lot of smoke because this wet stuff is just going to produce a lot of smoke. But these limbs that I'm getting, they're still cracking free. So this stuff's not saturated, it's just wet. When we get a fire going with this marginal tinder, we'll be good to go. And one of the ways that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use this fat wood. Fan this fire with my wool hat a little bit. Get this tree on down.
fan some flames again. Baby, don't die out on me. Come on, baby. Boy, that fire feels good. Oh. This is about a 16-foot limb, freestanding deadfall tree, or dead standing rather, I'm sorry, that I've just kind of let easily fall towards my fire. Problem is I've been up here for a while now and I never even saw it. We are supposed to get more rain tonight, so really be observant of your camp. You can't get killed in the middle of the night that way. Let's get this fire kit put up real quick. I'll set this kind of over the body of the camera because it is raining. You can see everything. Oh, I know. I've set my wool hat over top of this, so I don't know if you can hear me. Just trying not to turn my camera up. Okay. What we're going to do while my fire's catching up, I'm going to show you all my wild edibles. So I was supposed to forage a salad, and I did that. So let me kind of adjust that just a little bit. Hope you can hear me. I have first I've collected my water that I'm going to boil that and make some tea. And in particular, I'm going to make chaga tea. Now these are fall grapes from a grapevine, not to be confused with pulpberries. Fall grapes, they're good. They got a big seed, big old seed. I'm going to use those for a little bit of seasoning. I've got 3 or 4 bunches of those for my salad. Let me go get my wooden plate to lay this out for you. I'm gonna put some of those in with my bannock. I'm gonna cook in here in my vessel. Adjust this camera a little bit so you can see where my fire's going. So I got grapes from a grapevine. I got shumake or sumac, depending on what part of the world you're from. These smell very lemony, sort of like a pink lemonade for a cold drink. I'm gonna have those as well. Got a bannock mix that I made from home. It's powdered milk, flour, got some paprika in it, stuff like that. I have some jewelweed, which this is a great wild edible, but it's also a great medicinal plant if you're allergic to poison ivy. And that's going to be part of my salad. It's the leaves and the stems, spotted jewelweed. Stems are a little woody for me, so I don't use those much. I'm going to use those for some of my greens. I have honeysuckle, which is going to add some subtle flavor. I'm just going to eat the blooms. If you are desperate enough to eat honeysuckle for survival, use your time to find a way to off yourself, because there's not enough honeysuckle in the world to keep you alive. This is something rare this time of year. This is young poke salad. Now, I found this up on a waste bank, and it's uncharacteristic. This should already be buried out. So I'm going to eat it. I'm only going to eat some of it, and I'll just twist that in half like that. I wouldn't eat a lot of it this time of year because it is supposed to be buried out, and I don't quite understand why it isn't. Here's another sprig. I'm looking around here on the ground. There's other stuff I see that I can eat. Clover and different things like that. So you know what? Let's throw a little clover in there for greens. I've got my deer meat that I'm going to cook. Cook that on a sharpened stick. But I got the piece de la resistance, the one that you cannot imitate. I have pawpaws, native to Kentucky. This come off of a pawpaw tree. They're great. They kind of look like a pear. They got a big seed in them. I got 3 or 4, so let's break this one open and look. It tastes like an overripe banana. They're so good. That's the seed. They're massive. I'm going to save all these seeds, and I'm going to plant these at home. There's a male and a female of these plants, so if you don't plant a bunch of them, you're not going to have any. They grow in thickets. So good. All of those seeds come from one plant, so quite a few of them. I have a few more of those. So that's my wild salad. I'm going to have that with chaga tea. A nice little piece of chaga sent to me by Mountain Car. Good medicine, brother. My leather pot holder. Let's separate some of this out. This is going to be my drink. There's my wild greens, my wild salad. And if this was large pieces of meat, I'd cook on coals. These are small cuts. It's thigh, which would be a sustainable meat for a long hunter, which is my outlook on bushcraft stuff. I'm going to go cut a stick. You have to be careful. I'm going to cut a stick off of something I know won't kill me, like a tulip poplar. There's a tulip poplar directly behind the camera here, so we'll get this limb. This is a dead break-off limb. If this was dry weather, right here would have been my bird's nest. So I did have a bird's nest plan. But luckily, just that mentality that pick it up as I keep going. I had that cedar bark. That cedar tree's a long way from here, but I grabbed it last time I was up there when I was doing the one stick fire challenge. Actually, I was looking for dead limbs. There we go. That's gonna be my skewer for my meat. Let's get something going here. There's a good looking fire going. Just some good pieces of meat were skewered on the stick. This is a big doe that was killed during youth season. Good friend of mine, I brought her home and processed her. He tagged her, she was a legal kill. Get some of this good meat cooking. I'm gonna move my water. It's not even getting warm, so I'm gonna move my water right there to make my tea with. I'm not worried about a little bit of grit or anything like that. I'm just trying to cook it and get it done. Next things, I'm going to get some more wood, kind of build this fire up. So. My meat's sizzling. Stick burnt. That's okay though. I'll show you what I'm going to do after that. First thing I'm going to do is lay this kind of wet wood out to dry. Catch up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and make a set of fire tongs out of this stick. And that's easy enough. I just use this stick, split it by hand to just pick up my meat, kind of twist it around. Another great way to cook meat on a fire, kind of lay it on your wet wood while it's drying. And it will cook, it'll slow it way down. But one thing that you gotta make sure you do is you're not using big cuts of meat. Now if I had this whole deer ham laying here, it'd never in time get done. That's why I processed it down small, so it'll cook faster and evenly. There we go. Deer meat's almost done. You lay some more on here. And what this skewer allowed me to do is keep it all together. Oh, good there, meat. That was good, good, good. In a survival situation, one of the things I'm going to suggest when you're not just doing bushcraft, when you're trying to live, boil everything and drink the broth. If you don't like the way it tastes, tough. It's going to keep you alive, so. Sorry I'm off camera, I'm just kind of stripping this back. And the reason being is trying to get a flat surface to kind of work this meat. But I want to strip that bark off in case, I don't know, coyotes come by and peed on this or something. The coyotes will be here tonight if I don't stick around. They'll smell this meat. So, they may not be here now, but they'll definitely be here tonight. Water. Building some little twigs up here. Jack, get out of that. Building some little twigs up here to get my water boiling. When they burn, they'll kind of get that going. I can just shimmy this large cross piece that I've spread out my grill and give my meat more access to fire. I'm just kind of poke around at it. I like most meats rare that isn't chicken or, you know, something obvious you can't eat rare, but wild meats tend to be a little more cautious of, especially fatty areas. We don't know this animal's life, so we want to kind of make sure we don't eat something that's going to kill us. I'm going to flip those out. This is what I'm going to make my bannock in. I'm going to cheat a little because even though this water's not boiled, it's going to cook in this bannock and sanitize. It is quite warm, so there is that. Just going to kind of push this bannock out of this bag and I know what that looks like, and you know what that looks like, so let's just pat that down a little bit. Hope for the best. I'm gonna set this right here over my grill and make some bannock in the lid of my Morse pot. This Morse pot came from an estate sale. It's been all over. This is an old one, a no name. I've been told that it's a Miro by some experts. You wouldn't believe me if I told you who. So that's one of those things in these communities. I saw one. Jason Jackson's got one very similar. Was gifted to him by Brandon. And I have the percolator because I collect cooking gear that was gifted to me by my good friend Manton Carr. Manton found it in a thrift store. So, very proud to own it as well. This meat's done. This meat's done. This meat's done. Other pieces are going to make jerky if I'm not careful. There we go. Fire going. Bannock. And how I'll manage this, I can use that piece of leather, but I need a good set of primitive tongs here. I'm just going to move it on. So there's my dinner. My wild meal. Got my tea brewing up. I like my tea after. It's one of those practices. There it is, deer meat. I've got an assortment of wild greens that I showed you. I got some clover, some poke salad, some jewel weed, and I've got some wild grapes. Got some pawpaws. I got an excellent meal here. I'm gonna sit down and eat. We'll talk for a while I'm waiting for my bannock to get done and my water to start boiling for my chaga. We'll talk it out. It's been a long day already. A couple of words of advice. Don't bring your dog when you're cooking. Here you go, bud. Here, Jack. You want it? You want it? No, I'm not going to eat it now that you've licked it. There. Nasty. It's excellent. Now, a couple words of advice I give to some of my friends all the time. Make sure you're not cooking with the wrong kind of wood. You know, if you cook your delicious deer meat with pine or some kind of nasty wood, your deer meat's going to taste like pine or some kind of nasty wood. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this type of thing. My bread is almost done. I'm going to move this into our fire. Ooh, that's hot. It is stainless steel. Get that rolling for my chaga. Definitely a hint of cinnamon. That's done. Let's move that off the fire. Oh, it's cooked good too. Got my pawpaws. Nice little fresh salad. Sweet tooth. Down here I got some wild grapes. Spit those pits out. Go ahead and get my moist pot over here. Oh no, my pawpaws. Woo. My moist pot over here. Drop in the sumac. Drop in these wild grapes because I don't like them any other way. And my chaga. Let go ahead and start steeping. I'm spitting that peel out just because it's rough. The pawpaw is very similar to like a plantain. So that hull is kind of tough. Instead of Bushcraft Meal, I knew I wanted to make meat because that's just my personal belief system. That a meal's not a meal without meat. But there are other options here. You see I'm eating quite well. I've got bread. You know, I can cook this bread on a stick. Actually, I'll show you that. I grilled my meat over top of these sticks with a skewer because it was smaller pieces. There are other options aside meat if you're a vegetarian. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. So this is a good mix here. I could have mixed beef bouillon in this and made it had a good hearty taste. I could have put some sugar in it, made it sweet. Make that bannock here over the fire on a stick. I really wanted to do this without making a huge structure or using a lot of store-bought items. And the reason why is because I go to so many places where people camp now that bushcraft's popular, and they've cut everything. I camped this summer in a location that we literally couldn't find a stick to prop the middle of my tarp because people had cut everything to burn for wood. But we did have no shortage of containers. We did have plenty of beer cans laying around that other people had left. I don't drink, so that was just a further disappointment to me. Salad and a big meal. Lord, I won't be able to walk out of here. Beer, meat, pawpaws. I timing that sumac for that shumac for flavor because it is watered down because it did rain, but this still should be good. Wild grape. My water's boiling now, so that's good. Come on, Jack. All dogs are your friends when you have food. If I wrap that around, I'll let it get done on one side, I'll roll it over, and that'll hold it. So, take those grapes out of there now. Just a chaga left. Plantain. I don't remember picking that up. Come on, Jack. Come on. Here, you want some jewelweed? You don't want jewelweed. That's odd. Come on, Jack. You can't have my food. He's my buddy. I can't help it. Here you go, Jack. I try to use a lot of different things for medicinal purposes when I can. Chaga's going to alleviate my blood sugar. That's going to be good. Regulate that for me if I needed it. The sumac, that acid really helps to retain fluid, fight dehydration. Jewelweed is medicinal as well. Pawpaws are so dang good. Another interesting thing about pawpaws is they have to go through a winter freeze, so I will take these home and put them in the freezer and set them out this winter so the groundhogs don't dig them up, or chipmunks and stuff like that. I'll set them out once the first frost is over. I'll give them their freeze cycle. Maybe they'll come up. I'm really hoping they do. Saving these seeds in my moor spot. I'm going to pack them out of here. You really see why they're growing thickest, don't you? That quit from pawpaw seeds. You won't need a pawpaw. You won't need a banana, as far as I know anyway. Whole lot spitting. My dad was telling me yesterday that he had a friend that ate a lot of pies out of different fruits, but said the worst thing he ever ate was a pawpaw pie. Oh my God. Woo. Give me a little flavor in my tea here. And the honeysuckle. God knows what else. Oh, correct seeds. Well, my little notion here, my bread. Bannock a la stick. Looks done as well. The thing about bannock is it's a light bread. It's a hearty bread, but it's a light bread, so you don't have to worry about it cooking forever. Man, that is good. See, another way I like bannock. is in deer towel fried. I love it. Get this sucker out of here. Oh man, that is definitely a color. I'll let it set for just a second. I'll bring it up and let you take a look at it. Small little fire. If I was doing some sustained long-term cooking, I'd get a coal bed like this up, put some big old logs on there, and throw those little pieces of meat on there. That's how I'd do it. Jack, you eating leftovers, I suppose. No seconds for me. That's okay. I'm gonna go home and have a big steak. You realize you're eating grass and leaves, right? I just checked. I mean, just one. You want a piece of bannock? Huh? Jack likes bannock. It's burnt. You don't know. You know you got good bannock when it's even good burnt. That is good stuff. The dish is done. Moisten that up a little bit. So, here's what we got, folks. This is my tea. Move this around where you can see inside. It's definitely a color. This is chaga, wild grapes, and shumake. Oh my God, it's so good. Now, one of the things that I like about this Pathfinder bottle and cup set, and make sure you can see where I'm going to be at. Oh yeah. One of the things I like about this Pathfinder kit, where this cup's so tall, you don't get the woes of a stainless steel cup on your lip. Now, that is a problem. So I filled it up to about here, let it boil down some, so it's not going to burn me. Still hot. This would go to bed with me. If I was going to do my overnight, I would go into my shelter, and this would actually come to bed and be my nighttime snack, my warm drink. Soak that out. Get some of this bannock out of the lid here. If you don't grease it, it kind of sticks, but it's nothing I can't fix at home. Let me wrap up and finish the thought we talked about earlier. The modern bushcraft camp, the camp full of stories, as we called it. A modern bushcraft camp, a camp full of items that you got from trades. I'm really sporting Brad McCaffrey here in Francis Kirk today. The Francis Kirk neck knife. I've got somewhere in my pocket a Swiss Army knife farmer that Cody Burrows traded off for Francis Kirk, and I wound up with. Used my Francis Kirk striker and my Brad McCaffrey Hudson Bay 10. I traded for everything that I use pretty much. Even my blind horse knives and my Norland hatchet I traded for. I think that's the life. I think that's the bushcraft way. You're trading for goods, you're trading for stories. This thing's awesome. Francis just sent this to me on a whim, and I actually strike a fire too, so this is an excellent tool. I've made a lot of brothers this way in this area, so that upper respiratory's killing me. Warm liquid's kind of breaking it up. It's hot, which is kind of breaking it up. Good Lord, that's hot. But I would take that to bed and then be my bedtime snack. So, all right, that is my bushcraft meal. I used a wood grill, used a skewer to hold small pieces of meat together. I baked in the top of my Morse pot. I boiled some tea. So I had wild greens. I had pawpaws, which is a nice fruit. This is the fall time of the year. I had deer meat. I had a nice bread and a nice tea. I don't know what more you could ask for. At home, I do have a pipe that was carved for me by William Ribbing. Now, I don't smoke, so I didn't bring it out with me. But as far as having a real piece of history and good medicine and symbol of friendship, I mean, this guy gifted this pipe, this handmade pipe to me. It's really interesting. Everything I have, to me, is just a marvel of either a craft, something somebody's made, or manufactured from a long time ago. This Morse pot took me a long time to find, but I love this thing. The leather inside came from Philip Girardi, and in a trade I sent him an Alice pack, and he sent me a bunch of good stuff. This neck knife came in a trade. My flint and steel kit all came in trades, even the flint. The char cloth is made from material that came in a trade. If I go back through my fire starting kit and get it back down here, I'll show you the last thing I would do after a meal. And I think this is common for everybody. So let me go grab some stuff and we'll show you what we'll do just to maintain our camp. This is part of our meal. We've cleaned up our mess. I'm gonna go get my fire kit and make some char cloth for the next time. It's cold as kicking my butt. Whoop! That's good on camera. Pathfinder bottle there. On the front of this has a little tin. They call it a snuff tin. And that's going to be my char material. Brad actually sent that along with the kit. I'm just going to set that in the fire. And that's how we're going to wrap up, is making that char cloth. We have a little bit of cool water here. I'm going to pour her in just to cool that down. We'll sip a little tea and off into the sunset, guys. Grape seed. Talon, I hope your meal went just as well as mine did, man. And I look forward to watching it soon. I'm going to let this fire die down and make our char cloth. We'll be seeing you soon. get a good shot of our camp, our little shelter here. Show you what we're working with. I think my char cloth's done. Let's go take a look, wrap this video up. No, but she's cooking nicely. Note those little flames on either side of it. Rain's coming. I'm gonna let that cool off. And we're gonna get to work on some other things.